More now of our conversation with Randy Liberty.
He grew up in central Maine and has spent his entire adult life working in either the military or law enforcement or the Maine Department of Corrections. And his philosophy is almost certainly not what you would expect from someone with that background. As Randy Liberty spent years working in law enforcement, his views changed. He was troubled by the failure to address the underlying issues that lead to so much crime, issues such as trauma, poverty, and poor education.
That's who we have in our custody in the state of Maine and nationally. And so how can I help them to pivot on their lives?
Working in the sheriff's office, Liberty took part in a lot of drug raids, as he puts it, kicking down doors. He now looks back on those raids with a degree of regret, believing the resources could have been better spent on drug treatment.
I've done hundreds and hundreds of search warrants and trying to stop the trafficking. But really, the important piece is help people in recovery.
You left law enforcement and went to work as the warden at the Maine State Prison and then became Commissioner of Corrections. So you have seen the entire prison system in Maine from every possible angle. And you've come around to the view that the traditional ways of doing things in many, many cases were dead wrong.
What I saw a traditional correction system of, based on punishment and power dynamic, a lot of people in solitary, and it took time. It took time to evolve the prison culture.
Liberty made it policy that in the prison system, whether employed there or incarcerated there, everyone should be treated with dignity and respect.
In 2017, we had 87 assaults on staff. Last year, we had 7. So we've created an environment that's safe, not only for the residents, but also for the staff there. And the staff at the Maine State Prison do a tremendous job, and it's a very difficult job, and they're very dedicated to do the right thing. And I couldn't be more pleased to be, part of that team.
I think that there's benefit for them to raise their own food and save some tax dollars.
Liberty started programs for inmates that 25 years ago would have been unimaginable. Organic gardening is perhaps the most visible because it grows 275,000 pounds of produce a year, which supplies food banks and saves the corrections system substantial money. How often do you get stung out here?
On occasion. So we have protocols in place that we don't come in here without suits, except for 207.
Other programs inside the prison walls include beekeeping, yoga, a debate team, and college classes through the University of Maine at Augusta. There are a lot of critics who would say you're coddling people who have committed serious crimes.
I'm not naive to the harm that's been done. I've been to many, many hundreds of crime scenes involving homicides. I mean, everything you can imagine.
But Liberty says the crucial goal for the correction system should be giving people who are incarcerated the help they need so they never go back to prison.
That's how we measure corrections in America. How frequently someone is released from prison and then returned because they've done more criminal activity. And we're down to 21% now. If someone attends the University of Maine at Augusta while they're incarcerated and they graduate, they come back at a rate of 0.05%. Tremendous work. I've never seen better money invested.
As Liberty points out, a significant number of people in prison have suffered trauma in their lives. He is sensitive to their struggles because he volunteered to return to military service during the Iraq War and saw firsthand the horrors of combat.
As an infantryman engaged in Anbar Province, Ramadi, Fallujah, it was a meat grinder. There was a lot of violence, a lot of killing going on. I lost a lot of guys. And when people die in combat, it's not like in the movies.
When he came home, he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which eased only after he got counseling.
I was able to talk about Iraq without being emotional, significantly reduced any anger or anxiety, and it made a big difference. And so I would just encourage any soldiers that are service members that have the opportunity to go to Togus, and they're a great bunch of folks that will help you.
What lay ahead for Liberty were rewarding years as warden of the Maine State Prison and then Maine Commissioner of Corrections. You make the point, and this is pretty rare in the corrections field, that so many of the people who are incarcerated are there because of poverty, substance abuse, mental illness, or a combination of the three. And that this is something that is just not recognized by the Get Tough on Crime crowd?
The getting tough on crime, the 3 strikes, the minimum mandatories, the war on drugs, all of that resulted in the United States having record numbers of people incarcerated. And it's very costly, it's very damaging to families and communities, and no good comes of it. So the money is best spent with programming, treatment, and our communities are stronger as a result of that.
You believe in redemption for a slice of the population that a lot of people think can't be redeemed.
They can be redeemed. I've seen it personally. I've arrested a lot of folks. And when I arrived at the prison as the warden, there were probably 30 people that I put there. And I saw how they behaved prior to, and when they received treatment and programming and education, I've seen a significant change in them. And when they release, they don't come back. And so I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
You've had a remarkable life, Randy, from the kid who went to the Maine State Prison and celebrated Christmas there with a dad who was incarcerated, to becoming the warden of that institution, to running the whole prison system in Maine. This book gave you a chance to sort of look back on it all. What would you go back and say to that kid?
I would say to him that the harder you work, the luckier you'll be. And just work hard, keep grinding. You're gonna have challenging times, but in the end, if you do the right thing and you work hard and receive an education, surround yourself with people, like-minded people that are positive and want to help the community and do the right thing, you'll be okay.
Those changes that have happened in the Maine prison system have not happened everywhere. There are a lot of states that completely resist the kinds of things that he has instituted, and yet you look at the numbers. For instance, what he quoted there, assaults on the staff in the Maine State Prison have dropped by more than 90% in about the last 8 years.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And his story in general. It's hard not to get emotional about it, to see where his life has taken him. It could have gone in a completely different direction. And he's had this full circle moment, and he's still doing good.
Absolutely.
It's
and
amazing.
He cares about people. He's in a lot of work where often there's not a lot of concern for people, and
Right.
he has a completely different attitude. So here's an interesting question. What happens next? He's a political appointee as Corrections Commissioner, serves at the whim of the governor. Janet Mills will be leaving office in less than a year. Randy says he is also going to leave as Corrections Commissioner. He says it's time for a change, and he's going to do something different. He says he wants to do, among other things, more fishing.
Hey, good state for it.
He's earned it. We talked with Randy Liberty at the University of Maine at Augusta, which he and several members of his family have attended. He's a big supporter of the school, in part because it offers classes to people who are incarcerated in the Maine prison system.
If you would like to meet Randy Liberty and hear more about his book, Liberty's Prison, he's got some book events coming up. He'll be at the Brown Memorial Library in Clinton on March 7th, Lithgow Library in Augusta on March 14th, and Lawrence Public Library in Fairfield on April 11th.